Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop stream, your one stop for co-op news and playthroughs. And that was Mike dancing in the corner. What's up, Mike?
Hey, everybody. I'm still a little bit tired from convention fun, but we're ready to talk about some PAX Unplugged.
And in the other corner, it is Jerry. What's up, Jerry?
Hey, everybody.
And
Yeah, I'm a little tired, too, and I have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. But, hey, why not do a podcast?
Why not? That's what I say every night.
Well,
and when Peter's not around, I just record myself sadness style.
I record myself sadness style.
Sadness style.
Sadness style, baby.
Whoop 'em, sadness style. Oh. I
don't know the dance. I'm sorry.
I order my In-N-Out burger. Sadness style. It's the meatless version.
All right, this is off the rails already, which is awesome. That's the way we like it here at the One Stop Co-op Shop. Who needs rails? And speaking of rails, let's talk about our Patreon.
What was that?
I have no idea.
The transition?
No, it wasn't. It was great.
Yeah, but by the way, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/onestop. And we have exclusive early access to our videos, exclusive videos you can't see anywhere else, mostly with me whining about something. This month, December, you'll get a double dose of Mike anger as I go over the worst games I played this year. Not really anger, more disappointment generally. But yeah, there's like, I don't know, 40 videos up there almost that are only able to be seen by our patrons. But beyond that, you help us support the channel. You help us to upgrade our filming equipment, pay for our podcast fees, pay for our other fees. So, yes, we very much appreciate you. And this week, we'd like to especially thank Boris Macias Jobim, Len Lindsay, Brandon Hum, Alistair, and Lucas Hedgren. I'm sure I got all of those 100% correct.
It sounded like it. It sounded like you were...
Boris, Len, Brandon, Alistair, and Lucas, thank you. And thanks to all our patrons. And even if your financial situation doesn't allow you to support us through Patreon, don't forget you can always join our Discord and just come say hi. You can leave a review for this very podcast. You can subscribe to our streaming channel or our main channel. Everything helps, and we love to just engage with our community any way we can. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, make sure you become a Patreon or a Patreon.
A Patriot and a Patriot.
A patron. Watch Mike go full dad. He's not just angry in this video; he's disappointed.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, you should have seen.
I say to my children every day. I was like, "You didn't eat that last green bean." I'm not just angry.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
You should have seen Mike going full dad before we started recording. Jerry and I were watching one of his sons sneak up right behind him and scare the bejesus out of him.
This picture, like little child right here. Yes. Creeping like a ghost.
And we get to see it coming, and Mike doesn't.
Yes. And no one said a darn thing because it was way funnier that way.
And the great part is now if like some murderer comes to axe me to death, you know, you all just be watching, be like, huh, I bet Mike's going to hear him this time.
That's hilarious.
Oh, Mike, look out. Oh, you're carroted.
That feels like that'd be in like a Scream movie or something where it's like people are watching, they're like, no, behind you, but it's like lagged and you didn't realize that he's like dead already.
Well, not Scream. They did that kind of stuff in both the Unfriended movies, which are pretty good if you're into that kind of thing.
I've never even heard of that.
Never have heard of that either.
That's why I watch more horror movies than you guys do. But yeah, the whole concept is that they're on like a Zoom / like Skype call as each of them is dying, and like the entire movie is just a screen. You know.
I'm sure it's no screamers.
Oh, screamers! It's like the giant. Isn't that giant worms that were like kind of like sandworms? Oh, all right, never mind.
Isn't that Tremors?
Tremors, you're right.
He's thinking Tremors. Screamers is Peter Roller. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, but PAX Unplugged! PAX Unplugged! I mean, you don't know what PAX Unplugged did? So PAX is a series of conventions that I guess were originally kind of organized by the Penny Arcade people. Isn't that right?
Yep.
And, but yeah, at this point they have a whole bunch of them. I think they're all organized by Reed Pop, who's also taking over E3 for this next year, after it's been kind of on hiatus, if you like video games. Sorry, I'm getting off topic again. But yeah, PAX Unplugged is the unplugged version of PAX, which is board game and role-playing game focused. And I don't know, what's the format, Peter? We're just going to kind of talk about our experiences and some of the games we saw and/or played.
Yeah. I mean, we usually start with like the beginning, like our first day when we arrived, things like that. And then we'll talk about the games we played, just so you all get an idea of what games were there, maybe our highlights from the con, what games we're looking forward to coming out, maybe some, just whatever comes to our mind. You know how organized we are with our show notes. So
I do have a list pulled up right now of all the games I played and saw, so I'm vaguely ready.
I took pictures, so there was that.
I took pictures too, and now I'm not using them for anything. I did use them to make the list that I'm looking at right now.
Nice. All right. Well, let's talk about pre-con. We decided to not go up Thursday night this year. We went up on Friday morning, and guess what? We still had plenty of time. The lines weren't that bad. Yeah. I mean, there was kind of a giant line on the outside to get in, but like it moved fairly quickly. And then there was like plenty of places to get your bands, and then right to will call. And yeah, there was not much of a slowdown getting in the convention. I was worried because we got there around 10 that we wouldn't get in until like noon, but no, it's probably a half hour or less, even with all the lines and stuff to get in.
Yeah, I guess if we were trying to like get the few copies of Frosthaven they had for sale or something, maybe we would have needed to be like right at the front of the line. But yeah, as it was, we were totally fine. Sorry,
how
Jerry,
many copies did they have?
Somebody in our Discord said they got one. So at
really?
least one is what I'm aware of.
I heard afterwards they had some copies for like $250 or something like that.
Ooh.
There, but
that was probably people
I got
scalp
mine.
them.
I got mine the week before, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so many copies. It makes sense that it's been a rollout. So people are still waiting on our Discord and on YouTube for it. But I'm glad it's getting out there. We haven't played it yet, but at some point we'll have time for just one more campaign game. There's so few. There we go. That's my tagline. That's my most positive thing about PAX Unplugged this year. I don't think I saw any super compelling new upcoming campaign dungeon crawl boss battler games. So
way to sell it, Mike. We just lost our like everybody just went off. Way to put that out up front. You're supposed to spoil things or like tease things, not like give them away for free. Haven't you learned anything?
I mean that's never mind. I'm not gonna make that joke. Let's go. Let's move on.
You weren't looking very hard, Mike.
Oh. You saw it again. You saw it. I almost got killed by my own wife. It was frightening. I saw my life flash before my eyes. I saw my wife and my life.
I was about to say you watch your wife flash before your eyes. Like, nice.
And now we've entered the dad joke portion of the podcast.
Hey, nothing wrong with dad jokes. All right.
Yeah, and
so let's compare that to Gen Con. So I know, Mike, you weren't there, but Jerry and I were.
I was about to say, this is the portion of the podcast where I shut up and don't say anything.
No, just...
How did it compare for you, Mike? Tell us more.
I spent much less time at PAX sitting on my couch playing video games and watching TV with my kids.
I will say the entry process was a lot more organized and quick at PAX. I mean,
yes.
Now, you're talking about a lower number of people, probably by 10, 15,000, I would guess, or potentially more. But
yeah, way more.
Gen Con was a mess, getting checked in, and getting the vaccine wristband. But PAX was actually very smooth for that.
Yeah, we were there a whole day early for Gen Con. It took us probably 2 hours just to get our vaccine card. Then we had to go wait in another line to get our badge. And to be fair, there was 2 lines. One for the badges. Well, first you went through a metal detector at PAX. And then right to the vaccine lines. And there were like 16 people. No, it was 20, I think it was. 10 on each side. And they put up a little green flag. You'd go over to them, show them your vaccine card, your ID, get your band. And then you could go right to the line on the left, but like there was nobody in those lines, like will call or anything else. So they either did a great job of sending the badges out early or just getting people through those lines super fast.
Yeah, I was impressed that it was faster at PAX, even with the metal detectors, because Gen Con doesn't have metal detectors. You just wander wherever you want to wander, but their lines are always atrocious, especially the Wednesday before.
Yeah, and Dr. Hand says, this is the one in Philly, right? Yes, it is. And can we compare it to other cons to see which is better or worse? We will definitely do that at the end. That's how you tease, Mike. That's how you tease.
Everybody, want to hear my number one game of the convention?
Let's go. All right.
Go!
All right. So after we got in, we kind of wandered the hall at first, but Mike and I got a game in pretty quickly right as we sat down. And this is one you had played before, but I had not played. And that is Fate Forge. So, Mike, while I'm pulling up pictures, do you want to...
And Peter wouldn't let me forget this. He's like, Mike, why do you get all these games and I never see them? And I was like, that's because I get like 10 of these games a week sometimes and I don't have time to make sure you play them all. But yeah, this is one that I covered that successfully crowdfunded earlier this year. And it's from the people who made Mighty Boards, who made Vengeance, as well as Vengeance Roll and Fight. And it uses a very similar combat system to both of those, where you're like kind of rolling a dice pool, and then the results will let you move around, and defeats generally very easily defeated like little minions. But this one is in a new fantasy setting with a bunch of narrative and a campaign where your character is growing, whereas both the Vengeance games are like one-offs, or like you can chain together some games and stuff. And yeah, I enjoyed this when it was on crowdfunding, but Peter, this was all new to you. I was kind of helping to teach the game to you. What did you think of it?
No, I thought it was really good. So you get a certain pool of dice at the beginning and of different colors, which have different like combinations of things. Yeah. Maybe there's like a sword on it, which is like melee damage. A boot on it means you move one tile, or an arrow on it, which means you can attack somebody adjacent. And that's really it. They do have some special symbols as well that'll help trigger like different skills and abilities that you have. Like you might need like a special symbol and a boot symbol to charge. I remember that was one of your abilities, yep. or whatever. And then you have this line of enemies. And I think the interesting part about the way the enemies activate is like you do all your activations and then the enemies do their activations, except there's one enemy card that gets inserted somewhere in your line of how you attack that activates like one or two enemies. And it does use an app. Mike, is that the only way that part can be done?
So, yeah, my understanding is the app is required. I mean, well, first of all, you didn't see this part, Peter, but there is a ton of narrative. Now, what's cool in what Peter and I played that they did not have back when I previewed it is they had, what we played was like a one-off combat mode, which I think is great because the narrative is actually kind of involved in the game. And that was one of the things that I wasn't 100% sure about when I previewed it. Like you would sometimes just sit like and read for 15 minutes before you'd get to like the next fight. And the fights are like 10 or 15 minutes long themselves. Yes. So it seemed very odd, but the instant combat mode seems perfect. So I was really glad they had that. But yeah, the app handles all the narrative stuff. It handles like the campaign stuff. Sometimes it'll direct you to a card like for an adventure and such. But the nice thing is you use the app almost not at all during the actual combat, except for that literally the one thing Peter just mentioned, like that little reaction. But my understanding is it is only handled through the app. I don't think they're giving any like physical alternative for it or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really enjoyed it.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So, Mike, you said you didn't see any narrative campaign games. And then the first game you're talking about is a narrative campaign game?
I said new to me. I played this like a while ago.
So in other words, most of these games will be new to most people, just not Mike, who has played a lot of previews of all of these things.
That's not true. I got tons of new games to talk about on here, or at least new to me. Some of them came out in like 2020, but I never played them.
Yeah, I mean, I did really enjoy this one. It was fast and simple enough to do your turns. I mean, you literally had 4 dice, and you had symbols on them. I do wish there was more mitigation. I wish we had more skills, because we basically had 1 skill. Now, it was the first demo of the con for them, so he didn't even know how to set it up. He's like, he basically had to adapt the mission to, which is weird, right? Because if it's supposed to be a one-off, you'd think they'd have like
it was weird in several ways, because he was like, oh, well, we don't have player scaling for this, and I was like, when I played my game, they had player scaling for every mission that I did. So I don't know, like maybe they had just recently added like that arena mode, and that was why. But we when we left, I gave him the strong recommendation. I was like, I played this game a ton for the prototype. I would recommend you give everybody at least 2 or 3 skills, because the game really comes to life once you have a bunch of that. When you have like, it's a bunch of like change this symbol to that symbol, change this symbol to that symbol, gives you, like Peter said, more mitigation, so your turns are more dynamic. when you're playing like the tutorial with only a single skill, you can have turns where you barely do anything, and that's not how you wow people with your game. And it is a good game. Like, I like this game a lot, but you really got to get past the couple of tutorials that teach you the game. And he was demoing a tutorial basically, when really you want to demo something that's sort of like early mid campaign to show what the system has capable, I think, because it's not a complicated game. It's not like you're trying to teach them Gloomhaven with like the toughest classes, it's you can throw into some skills and nobody's head is going to explode.
Yes. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I mean, this is right up my alley. You all know I like campaign games with like, I could tell I was going to like the leveling even though I didn't see much. Just getting a couple more of those skills seemed cool to me. And the fact that the missions themselves are like, 4 or 5 rounds, and each round you're literally activating 4 dice and that's it. So it's meant to be super quick, super straightforward. I enjoyed what I was doing. Now, would I enjoy it for like 10 hours? I don't know, but you don't play it for 10 hours. You play it for like 20 minutes. So it was great for that.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. When I was playing, you can go through like some story elements of Fate Forge. What's the full name? Do you have it up there, Peter?
Fate Forge Chronicles of Khan.
Yes. Yeah. You can go through like a little bit of the narrative, like maybe do 2 fights in like an hour. So it's really a nice, quick kind of pacing for the game.
Which you don't see very often in these campaign games, right? Like everything is like an hour to an hour and a half a mission, and then like 20 minutes of narrative and town building or whatever else. So I don't know. I'm
Oathsworn, if you're trying to do the entire narrative thing, like the full one, not the summary, and an entire fight, you're looking at like probably 2.5, 3 hours, I would say.
Yeah, that's your night.
And then Jerry falls asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how Peter taught Jerry Oathsworn. He's like, hey, let's play this at 11 o'clock at night or something.
I think it was later than that. So it wasn't Oathsworn's fault.
I do not think it was later than that, by the way, but it might have been. I don't think when we started it was. But anyway. All right, so Jerry, while we were playing Fate Forge, you disappeared. What were you up to?
I went to go check out the Gloomhaven announcement. So they had advertised that Gloomhaven was doing a big announcement at the main theater. So we got invited to that. So I went to go see what this announcement was all about. So they went over the fact that they're doing the minis for Gloomhaven as a Kickstarter, I believe, in April. And they announced that along with that, they're going to be launching a Gloomhaven RPG, which, I was interested enough to listen in. And the idea behind the Gloomhaven RPG is that it's a diceless RPG system. Now, there have been diceless RPG systems in the past, but this one is doing it a little bit differently. A lot of the diceless ones in the past have been more narrative-based. This one it still has the combat, but it's all based on card flips, just like the Gloomhaven board game. So you still have the modifier deck. You still have cards that you play for your character that have a top and a bottom, and they actually add a third section on the card that's used for skill tests. It seemed kind of interesting. So it's supposed to launch alongside the minis Kickstarter in April. We'll see when that comes out, a little bit more detail. They did do a live play, and I watched probably the first 15, 20 minutes of that. The only issue with that is they brought on, I guess, semi-pro RPGers to participate in the live play. So they really leaned into the role-playing part of things and not as much into the mechanics. And I kind of wanted to see what the mechanics of the game were like at that point. I'm not somebody who watches a lot of the live play RPGs like Critical Role or things like that, but they were spending an awful lot of time on the role play, and they were having a good time with it. But it wasn't really getting into the mechanics as much as I would have liked. So,
is this designed by Isaac? Do you know?
I don't know specifically who designed it. It's coming out from Cephalofair. So right. Cephalofair, they didn't license this out to somebody else to produce an RPG. So both the minis and the RPG are coming from Cephalofair. And Isaac was one of the players in the live play. Okay. And the guy who helped design Jaws of the Lion was the Gloom Master, I think they call him. Instead of Game Master, it's the
Gloom Master. Oh, gosh.
Get it, Gloomhaven?
Oh.
Gloom Master?
I get it.
Get it?
I wish I didn't. but I get it.
So I mean that was interesting, and the session itself in the main theater was actually packed for Gloomhaven. Both the two sessions before it, one of it which was an interview with the Penny Arcade creators, I think. Not many people in those, but the Gloomhaven one was a decently full house. It was probably like 80% full. So that's pretty good for one of the first events on Friday when a lot of people were still working.
Yeah. So Henry says Gazoon type, by the way, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, I was having some nasal issues there.
I was
Sorry,
trying not to
buddy.
laugh.
Nasal issues.
Nasal issues.
Wow. All right. I'm just gonna slide right past that one. So that was the Gloomhaven RPG announcement. So while you were doing that, Mike and I went to the
Rock Manor games.
Rock Manor. I couldn't think of it. So they had a private event in the Marriott across the hall, across the like street, whatever. And they were talking about 3 games and some expansions they had for them. The 3 games they talked about were Set a Watch, Maximum Apocalypse, and Seas of Havoc.
Yeah, and to be specific, the upcoming, this one is going to be on crowdfunding early next year, like Q1. Set a Watch, Forsaken Isles, that'll be the 3rd standalone set. And then Maximum Apocalypse is this one already crowdfunded and is delivering, I think, maybe next month. Wasted Wilds, which is the latest standalone set for Maximum Apocalypse.
So what was the Set a Watch one called again?
Forsaken Isles. It's like if you're looking on BGG, it's like near the bottom. It's kind of weird. Like they don't have a date, even though it's kickstarting.
That's the weird one. Like that's the only one that didn't have a date. All right, so I got a picture of that. There's not a lot of artwork out there.
There's not. I'm looking at it too. Yeah, we were there with friends of the show, Jeremy Howard, and some of his co-workers from Man vs. People and other stuff. We also saw Liz Davidson, Jason Perez from One Stop Co-op Shop. Lots of other great people.
They weren't at the Set a Watch thing. Jeremy.
No. Sorry. Yeah, I just sort of went into random name drops. But yes, Jeremy Howard was actually there.
Yes. So the interesting part for me, who was not a huge fan of the original Set a Watch, is that they have updated some stuff. So apparently in the second one, they added coins, which were just like bonuses you could get to buy gear, to do additional things. So, I mean, my big problem with the original one was variety was an issue for me because you could just kind of easily get the skills you wanted set up in the order you wanted and like just go from there, and there wasn't a lot of variety. So I think right away just adding items is a big addition to that. So I'm excited to try Set a Watch with those new items. And then the other one, I know they had a campaign they were talking about where if you had all the Set a Watch stuff, you could play through this campaign where you were like leveling up, I think, between the missions. Or do you remember more details about that?
No. Actually, the funny thing is I gravitated the other way. The thing that excited me the most, since as Peter said, Swords of the Coin Coast, I think it was called, the second set, already had the coin and item mechanic. They said for the third one, in addition to having the campaign, they're going to have a quicker play mode. Right now, it's like 8 rounds plus the final rounds. And we played the original Set a Watch at the... Yeah, Jerry's clapping right now because I guess he agrees with me. I feel like that game, besides the potential for the variety issue that Peter said, I think also it can drag a little bit sometimes, especially if you're playing a full 4-player game where you are out of the combat for many of the, or I guess at least 2 of the
25%.
combat. Yeah, 25%, exactly. So the idea that like maybe they'll have, they didn't say the exact details, but like, you know, a 4-round fight and maybe take out the camping mechanic or something along those lines. I don't know how they'll do it exactly, but that excites me the most. The idea of being able to play it as a little bit of like, you know, a 45-minute to an hour game instead of like maybe the hour and a half I would say it is usually right now.
Now remind me, was this one backward compatible? Like, were they introducing cards that you could play in earlier missions to do that? I'm trying to remember.
I mean, from my understanding is all the locations, all the 4 new heroes, there's like a golem and a witch, I think, and stuff, or like a pyromancer. The items are like backward compatible with the Sword Coast or Coin Coast one. So yeah, as far as I know, like everything, they did the same thing for Maximum Apocalypse. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think everything kind of splices together if you want it to. A big thing for Rock Manor for like their flagship games is sort of the modular nature of them. So that's kind of, I think, key to them.
All right. Well, let's talk about the one that'll be least interesting to our audience, but we should still talk a minute about it. Seas of Havoc.
Yep.
There was there a solo mode? I can't even remember.
There is a solo mode. Jeremy sort of indicated, that maybe it wasn't the star of the show. I have not actually played it, and I don't think he played the final version, so who knows. But yeah, I've had mixed, I like Maximum Apocalypse pretty well, and I want to play the newer content because I think it's gotten a lot better, I've heard. And I like Set a Watch, but I've had more mixed experiences with Rock Manor's competitive games when they add a solo mode, what was the main one? The Few and Cursed, I had a pretty bad experience with how they did solo co-op in that one. So I don't know if Seas of Havoc is going to feel potentially a little tacked on like that, but the competitive play looked kind of cool.
Yeah, so you're all these different pirate ships. You're going around, and basically you're drafting cards that give you actions like move forward 2, or shoot out the right side, shoot out the left side. And it's oh, shoot 3 spaces away, but you only shoot at power 1, or shoot 2 spaces away at power 2.
Yeah, it was kind of like sort of a deck building thing, which looked cool to me. Probably the most interesting part for me was that deck building combined with, tactical ship movement around a board to get broadsides on each other. They also had worker placement on the little islands that Peter's showing the board right now on the side. That part I'm not as clear on how interesting it would be, but I like the idea of blasting each other.
Yeah,
so you got me excited with that when you started talking about there's pirate ships and then card drafting, and I was just progressively getting more and more disappointed.
It's not card. It's really more like deck building because they go into a deck that you're shuffling, and then you're playing cards that give you some movement and other bonuses and stuff. So I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, in theory, I didn't play it.
In theory, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty small looking board. It was kind of, I don't know. I didn't get a good feel for it, but it didn't seem like something. I mean, my son's super into pirates, so I was very much interested in listening, and it didn't wow me. That doesn't mean it's not a good game. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know anything about the game at all. I do remember they said you could use different captains with different ships. So there's lots of variety, different combinations of stuff you can use. But I don't know. For me, it was the kind of game that I need to have played to figure it out, and we didn't see any gameplay stuff for it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm vaguely interested, and that's another one I think that is delivering quarter 1-ish. But let's get to the other one that we're actually co-op solo focused.
Dr. Han says, I hear they're making an updated version of Maximum to coincide with the rules for the new one. So we can.
That's what we're going to talk about.
What a segue.
Yep. So what was the name of that one?
Wasted Wilds is the one that's delivering soon. Maximum Apocalypse Wasted Wilds. And if you don't know Maximum Apocalypse, while Peter's pulling it up, we did some coverage of just the base game, and I think there might have been some plays on the streaming channel as well. This is a very modular deck system type of game, a la Sentinels of the Multiverse or the Sadler Brother games, in that you select an apocalypse. There have been, I think, 3 in each of the main sets, including the original. You each get a unique character with a unique deck of cards that gives them equipment they can gain and special actions they can perform. And it's scenario based where you're trying to get fuel or get food or defeat certain enemies or those kind of things. But the original that I covered, I was a bit mixed on, but literally everything I've heard from every expansion since then, each time there's been a new expansion, they've been hey, we made this and this better. And all the things that are my complaints about the game were things they made better. For example, for Wasted Wilds, they showed us how one of the big things that kind of concerned me with the original was that you'd have locations you were looking for in this deck of cards that were kind of face down and laid out on the board. And sometimes the places you needed to go were right next to you, and sometimes they weren't. And you'd have this great, huge diversity in how long the play experience was. And now in Wasted Wilds, they have many scenarios are more controlled in that you have to put it's not about the location card itself, but about a token on top of the location card. And you have to put those 3 away from you and then 3 away from that one. So they have more granular control over how long it takes to get to your places. So yeah, I don't know about you, Peter, but after, not loving the original Maximum Apocalypse, I really want to play this one with the new rules, the new content, the new updates. It looks clearly, and even the designer was talking about it, the owner of the company, I think too. He was saying they've updated things and the viewer was saying
that they backward compatible. I think they made new stuff for the first and second one to replace how the first and second one were played. I think.
Yeah,
they
literally,
said
like,
that.
I think this release, Wasted Wilds, and they said, like, the new printings of the old releases are going to have, like, a book that has updated scenarios for, like, every release. So that
Yes.
if you've bought other stuff, all you have to buy is the stuff you don't have yet, and you will get all the scenarios for everything that are updated and rebalanced and stuff. So, yeah, again, like, I didn't love the first time I played the game, but I think it's cool that they're connecting to it, making it better, improving it, and then probably the most important thing, making it not too expensive or challenging if you want to kind of update your version.
Well, so here's the thing for me is we talk about this with game design a lot of times. When you're designing a game and something is so glaring and stands out that, like, you know, if the difficulty is off in a co-op game, for example, you can't tell whether you like the mechanics or not a lot of times because all you're focused on is that difficulty level. You're like, this is way too easy or this is way too boring. It's hard to see past it. So Maximum Apocalypse, I know the big thing for us at the beginning was that variable game length, and like literally the first tile you go to could be the one you're looking for, or you could explore every tile in the game and have one left, and that could be the one you're looking for, right? And obviously, not only difficulty, but game length are going to vary greatly because of that. I mean, if they fix that one problem, I think I don't remember being annoyed with any of the other mechanics of the game. I remember that being such a glaring, obvious flaw for us with the game that, you know, it was hard to see past that one flaw to the rest of the game. So I am excited to retry it because I was super excited. They're like, oh yeah, you just put an A token on top of this and then you put another one over here and like you got to go from this place to this place. It's like, oh, that's great. Now each time you play, those locations will be different and there'll be different powers at the locations and everything else, and all that's cool to me. So I'm excited to retry it as well with all this new stuff. The other big thing they're doing here is they have two different environments. One is like a frozen environment, and the other one is like a post-apocalyptic, like Mad Maxy, you know, desert type environment. So,
I think it's 3 again. They've done 3 each time. I'm pretty sure. I think if you look at the cover,
2.
I think they've got. Oh wait, never mind. Environments. I think they have 3 apocalypses. Because, yeah, if you look in the middle, there's, like, the one that was, like, tribe-focused. There's, like, the ice one, and there's, like, the heat, like, global warming one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I remember him saying
either way.
Yeah, 2 different tile sets, I think. Maybe other ones only had 1 tile set, but a lot of different, like, apocalypses or whatever that led there. Yeah. This is actually going to have 2 sets of terrain tiles. You use either the ice one or the desert one, I think is, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
And maybe it is 3. Maybe there's a, like, Deadlands or whatever kind of in the middle as well. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, my feelings on the original were pretty much the same as you guys. It seemed like it should have been. It was a little half-baked. Needed a little bit more time in development, I guess. Especially if they solved it as easily as just putting tokens a set number of spaces out. So that
and it's like lots of stuff beyond that, because there was a problem with like hyper searching the same location when you needed stuff and nothing to prevent that. But then, like, one of the expansions added these, like, tokens that would exhaust locations and, like, had rules you had to move before you could scavenge again. So, yes, you know, is half-baked too harsh or not? I don't know. But either way, it sounds like if you're buying into Maximum Apocalypse now, you know, the beta testing is done, and you can get the best, like, version of the game possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I can guess is that maybe the designers or developers play tested it so much they didn't really notice the disparity in time.
Well, I think also, having talked to the guy a little bit, I think people just have different preferences. Some people really like the idea of, like, this is a sandbox, and you can do with it what you want, and you're going to have a very different story each time you play. Other people, you know, I would say this generally applies to us, maybe want, like, a bit more control and a bit more consistency. So it kind of goes to your taste a bit.
So,
but I did like I remember liking the core mechanics.
Yeah, and, like, the unique characters are great. Like, I love the feeling of playing, like, the doctor versus, like, the, you know, the cowboy.
Sniper guy or...
Yeah, exactly.
So it looks like this is one we're going to have to get back to the table and maybe even re-review. Because it feels like maybe there's going to be so much of a change that it will alter our opinion of the game. At least hopefully.
Yeah, this is one that I'm interested in enough that if they don't send us a copy, I'll probably just go ahead and buy it.
Yeah, so Dr. Han said, so am I going to get the update for this when it comes? I do believe they said it's coming all in this box, the Wasted Wildlands. You'll just get a campaign book for the first one and the second one as well. So
that was my understanding.
Yeah, so my understanding, too, is that it will come in the box. But is the next game the only one we played together all weekend, or did you have something else before the game I'm about to talk about next, Jerry?
Oh, you talking about WizKids?
Well, hold on. Before we go there, I have to make
Okay.
a correction. The Gloomhaven RPG and minis, I kept saying Kickstarter. That was just habit. It's actually Backer Kit.
Yes.
Is how they're going to crowdfund. Mike, you saying crowdfunding, consistently saying crowdfunding instead of Kickstarter reminded me that, oh, wait a minute. It's not they're not all Kickstarters.
I can't keep track anymore. Like there's
Yeah.
so much on Game Found, and like even things I cover. Like I'm recording for next week my top crowdfunded games of 2022, like a top 20 list. And yeah, I'm just like I have no idea what platform any of them are on anymore. It's like this
Gloomhaven's going to be on Backer Kit.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Backer Kit seemed to get a lot of the big publishers.
Well, they've gotten them in like the post crowdfunding campaign kind of handling. I think I don't know of any huge ones before Gloomhaven, like Frosthaven stuff.
Well, no, when they first announced, I forget who the companies were, but there was like a who's who of, Kickstarter people that like had basically said that they're going to do their next campaign with Backer Kit. So it was
Restoration Games was the first to do a game on Backer Kit.
Oh, did they do?
They did the expansion for Dark Tower.
Yeah, that's right. That was a big one.
Frosthaven was on Kickstarter.
Well, that was before Backer Kit. Like Frosthaven.
That was before Backer Kit did the crowdfunding.
Correct. Right. Before they did their own. But no, there was a lot of basically hoopla around who's going there. I mean, Kickstarter, this is a whole nother podcast. But Kickstarter will be interesting to see what percentage of the board games coming out, or at least big campaigns coming out, are through Kickstarter versus GameFound versus Backer Kit.
I'm looking on Backer Kit right now. These are tiny campaigns and not very many at one time compared to anything. So I think Kickstarter is still the big one in the room. I think GameFound has definitely carved a sizable niche with some really successful campaigns. Backer Kit, I have no doubt that Gloomhaven is going to tear it up, and that'll get more eyes on it. But it looks like they're definitely the most behind so far and still, building and developing.
Well, they're also in the phase where Kickstarter brings people to it, or brings customers to it, whereas the games bring customers to Backer Kit and GameFound, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody just, well, I shouldn't say nobody. I suspect many fewer people just browse Backer Kit, except Mike when he's in the middle of doing the podcast.
I tend to find myself.
What's interesting is they have some big ones that are coming. It's like I'm just like kind of skimming through the coming thing. Leader Games, the next game is apparently going to be on Backer Kit. That's a pretty big publisher. So like you were saying, Peter, they've got the Gloomhaven one here with 20,000 plus people already following it. The next Whirligig game, who made Pax Pamir and John Company. So yeah, you're right, Peter. They do clearly like they aren't ready yet, except for that huge one we mentioned from Restoration Games. But it looks like they will probably have a pretty big, I would guess, 2023.
Yeah, when they made the announcement, I don't think they're fully like up and going at this point. When they made that announcement, though, it was pretty shocking. The names of the people that were like associated with it. All right, so are we ready to talk about Dice Conquest, which was literally the only game I think we played together, all three of us, the entire convention. And not
Jerry and I played like 1,000 games together after that. But we don't like Peter that much.
Well, and Jerry and I played a game together that you weren't in.
That's right.
So this is, I believe, the only one we played together. And not only did we play it together once, we played it together twice. Just as a little spoiler alert. So obviously, game of the con right here, Dice Conquest.
Not going that far. I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. I don't think any of us expected to enjoy it when we sat down to play it.
I wouldn't have let them like give me a review copy if I thought it was going to be terrible. But yes, I did not expect to like it as much as I did.
Well, no. We played it before we took the copy, right?
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, you're right.
We played it and we're like, oh, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, this was fun. Yeah.
Because WizKids, it's being run by Zev now, and Zev, obviously previously of Z-Man, they're known for putting out lots of games, and some of them are great, and some of them are games. So, I wasn't sure what to think of this one, but I really enjoyed it too. So, somebody want to take over and talk about gameplay?
Sure. So the concept is it gives you a set of role-playing game dice, specifically like Dungeons and Dragons dice. So you have your D12 and your D20 and everything. And then each person who's playing takes a character, and that character is represented, it's a class, like you're the cleric or the wizard or the fighter. And then you go through a deck of creatures that attack you. So you flip over, what is it, number of players, or is it 3? I can't remember.
I think it's always.
I think
three.
it was always maybe 3. All right, so you flip over 3 cards, and then each monster might have a special ability where you have to attack that one first, or when that card is when that monster is revealed, you have to reveal another one along with it. They all have individual unique things and a number of hit points, and then you have to use the dice that you roll collectively, and you have to use the dice to do damage to the monsters in the line and get rid of them all before they damage you. So you go through an entire deck of monsters, and at the very end of the deck, the last monster is always the dragon that you have to fight and defeat and to win without anybody dying. So that's the quick synopsis. Did I miss anything?
No, what I'll say is kind of funny for anybody who's played Set a Watch that we were just talking about. I found this to be very much almost like Set a Watch Light, because one of the key mechanics in Set a Watch is you roll your personal dice pool, and then you're placing dice on cards, and that's like how much damage it's done. And then when the sum of the dice value overcomes the monster's health, then they die. And very similar thing here. What's interesting, though, is that it's a shared dice pool, like Jerry was saying. So you each take turns taking dice out, but some dice might work better for some characters. Like you have this crit value that you can fire off. And then...
and if you're on the YouTube streaming channel, I'm showing right now the characters.
Yeah.
So like the Thief, the Warrior, the Wizard. The Thief, for example, has a crit value of 2. So any dice that has a value 2, you trigger their special ability on the bottom. Warrior's a 5, Wizard's a 10. So that number on the bottom... So if you take a dice of that number, it will trigger that crit. So go ahead.
Yeah, so there's like very light tactics here. I wouldn't say anything is too challenging or intense.
No.
But like sometimes you want to save a die for another player or wait to use a die because then you'll get a reroll of it or something. And when you take a die from the pool, you can choose to reroll it or leave it on what it's on. So it's like a fun, like kind of like little push your lucky kind of randomness choice there. So yeah, it does really make me think of like if you want to play Set a Watch, but maybe like half the cost, and
half the time or a quarter of the time.
Yeah, half the time or a quarter of the time, but also like way less variety and like not as tactical. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna try to play it with my kids here pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, what is it? You think 15-20 minutes to play?
I mean, a bit longer than that because you do have to go through the whole deck. I'd say probably more like 25 to 30.
Oh, it felt more like 15 to 20 to me.
Okay.
I mean, the first game took a little bit longer.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so never mind. Let's say 15 to 20 once you played it once and you get what's going on.
Yep. All right.
And it's what, $20? I think.
Yeah, so I think I saw it 18 MSRP, so you might eventually be able to find it for like 14 or 15, I would guess.
Yeah.
And the hope is
like a reasonable price.
The hope is that they come up with more sets, right? So
yeah,
right now there's only one set of monsters, and you fight through all of them. There's only one set or one enemy. It's always going to be the dragon at the end. Yep. Now we didn't play with these trap cards, but there are also trap cards you can add in. So I have no idea how they work. But bottom line,
we barely beat the dragon in our one full game. So like, I don't know if I'm ready for trap cards.
Well, right, but
and we had like the busted character. What was I, like a rogue or something?
A rogue, yeah.
I was a little bit overpowered. There's definitely some. I wouldn't even say balance issues. It's the kind of thing where like I would give my son that character and he'd feel great.
Yeah. No, I think the nice part though is in the future, if this takes off, I think there is possibility for them to easily just put out more monsters, more bosses, and make it even more entertaining. More ways to play, more variety.
And if you're starting up a new D&D group, then you just gotta wait until they have like 5 sets, and then you can each buy a different set.
Right.
You're good to go.
You're set.
Nice. All right. So is Rove the next one?
Yep, Rove was the next one I had. Unless Jerry, you were with us at this point, so yeah, we all just walked together. So this is not Rove, the amazing button shy game. It's one of my top games of the year. This is
Rove that
campaign dungeon crawl fantasy boss battler Rove.
Narrative.
I guess I lied. I guess there is at least one more.
That has shampoo and conditioner at their booth.
They did. And you know what's funny? I didn't take it, and I regretted it greatly later when I was like, I think one of you brought Head and Shoulders, I guess, and I was like, yep. And it was too. You ever squeeze out a little bit of that brand of shampoo you're not familiar with, and you get way more foam than you thought you would. That was Mike Friday night, y'all. So you got to watch out.
Well, so
that's how they get you.
I'm on Board Game Geek showing the second picture, and literally it shows the shampoo bottles. I
gotta go look at this.
Maybe it's a game component. We just missed it.
Right. Now they did upgrade to be like dual pack shampoo and conditioner. This one was just shampoo. They definitely upgraded. They're like, what? No conditioner?
So this must be a different convention that they also brought. That's great. Oh yeah, it says Gen Con. That's great.
So Gen Con, they just had shampoo. So you should have waited for PAX to get the conditioner along with your shampoo.
There's exclusives.
I think they've just adopted Mike's method of using anything to represent characters and monsters. So they just had some extra
they
travel
ran
shampoo
out of standees.
bottles.
They were like, "This is the dragon."
It's shampoo.
Nice. So I don't remember much about this game except for I was like, wow, there's a lot going on. It feels like.
I think Jerry probably got the best description. Jerry, you want to talk through it a little bit?
Yeah, it's from the people who designed the Crimson.
It was like Crimson Sands. Is that what it was called?
Something like that. Crimson something or other. It was basically a very nicely produced fan expansion to Gloomhaven. It comes in a huge box. You order it for basically their cost. I think it's like
Crimson Scales.
Crimson Scales. So yeah, they did that, and it's really, my understanding is it's really well done. It's just a straight expansion to Gloomhaven, and this one is built off of the work they did in Crimson Scales. So it's their own game. It has some similarities to Gloomhaven, but it also changes up the mechanics a bit. So there aren't the cards that you play in Gloomhaven that have a top and a bottom with the initiative. You have a hand of cards, and as you take an action that's on one of the cards, instead of like losing it forever and like you do in Gloomhaven or putting it in the discard and having to wait to take a rest, you flip the card over, and then another action is on the back.
That's right. It's a different action.
A different action is on the back, correct?
Yeah.
And then as you go through the scenario, you're manipulating this hand of cards by flipping cards back and forth based on what you need to do. So it had some interesting things. When I looked at the scenario book, I think they must have used the same templates that they had made for Crimson Scales that look basically exactly like Gloomhaven, like down to the fonts and everything. Except this map is squares, not hexes. So big change there.
Huge difference.
Yes, it's 33% less sides.
This game sounds square to me.
So they only had a very small preview version there at PAX.
But already it was better than these pictures I'm looking at from Gen Con, because they had like a map book, if I remember correctly, and here they clearly just had printed pieces of paper. Let me look back through my pictures.
Yeah, they had a map book and a scenario book. Yeah, that had a few scenarios in it.
And they had printed miniatures at the thing.
3D printed.
Yeah. 3D printed. I should upload my pictures, because first of all, I have both the shampoo and conditioner 2-pack in my pictures, as well as the 3D printed miniatures. So maybe I upload that to BGG, because they're clearly missing,
conditioner.
Conditioner is better. I leave the hair silky and smooth.
Adam Sandler, Mike. Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. We didn't get to play a demo. We just got basically a description of what's going on, and they showed us some of the components and the cards. But I'll be interested to see what the final version is and how it differs from Gloomhaven, and whether that is interesting to me or not.
Yeah, I mean, I was not super interested on my first viewing, mainly because I looked at the scenario book and it was like, move and fight monsters. Move and fight monsters again, but maybe pick up this thing.
And
move and fight monsters again, but they're kind of moving towards, civilians. And so it's going to come down for me, I think, to maybe how diverse the character classes are, and then how different the enemy AI is. And honestly, the iconography was a bit intimidating to me, especially for the enemies. I was like, there's a lot of stuff going on, so I couldn't really tell if the enemies were diverse or not. But if they are, then the idea that you're playing just like kind of basic combat scenarios could still be pretty exciting. I'll just have to see as more comes out about it.
I'll say for
me, there
me,
was an awful lot of stuff with those enemies.
Yeah.
And I'll say for me, the board wasn't that exciting either. Like, it was just literally looked like a bunch of squares, and some of them were colored and not. There was definitely artwork behind it. And I know this was prototype still. It wasn't final. But it was a big turnoff looking at that map. Like, it was just, yeah, that was that, and like you said, a lot of text on all the cards, and not only that, but like there's two sides of the card, so like you're flipping it over, and now you have a whole new ability on that card on the other side, and so when you're making the choices, it seems like you got to make a choice based on what skill is best for you now, and maybe what you want to unlock and flip over to as well. So there's that.
Yeah, I think the map book was certainly pretty generic looking, but I think the point they were trying to get across was that it is a map book like Jaws of the Lion and not tiles like Gloomhaven.
Sure.
Right.
I think that's what they were trying to show with that map book. But you're right, the map book was pretty plain.
Yeah, and all prototype. So, I mean, who knows? It could be beautiful and wonderful at the end, and my opinion on that could change. I mean, it was very clear what the boxes were. And like there were some blue ones, so I assume those had water in them. It was like super clear, but it was probably early graphic design, so I don't want to beat them up too much over that. All right, did we all go to the same place next?
Wise Wizards.
Yep, that's what I had.
I have a quick check-in before that from Plaid Hat.
Okay.
Yeah, the first game, if you want to pull it up, Peter, is Hickory Dickory. No doc, just Hickory Dickory, 2023. So I didn't get to play this one.
Doc game from 1981.
Yes, that's not it. That's why I said no doc.
I am well aware. I'm just saying.
So this is an upcoming one from Plaid Hat Games. I got a nice like kind of talk through of all the mechanics. Like I could almost teach the game at this point, but I didn't actually get to play it. But kind of the key thing, it reminded me a bit going way back, well, not way back, of Tzolk'in from Check Game Edition, because I don't know if Peter's pulled it up yet, but you've got these clock hands.
Yep.
Yeah, and your worker meeples actually like jump on and off the clock, so you jump onto like the time like spaces and different actions are activated, but you're also grabbing these different resources, and then you jump back onto the clock hand and just kind of like trying to like, arrange all of that. And then also like if you see underneath the clock hand, there's like the little like
chimes or
danglies.
Yeah.
Like those pull up and down, and like you're trying to climb them, and the earlier you climb them, the more victory points you get, and then like the victory point reward. And
you mean the counterweights?
I guess that's what they're called. And then
the danglies.
The dangly bits. And then
the danglies under Hickory Dickory.
Each player's got 4 different types of mice, but they move differently, and they've got different resource capacity. But if they like get together, then they can trade stuff. And you're like putting tiles on this little 4x4 grid to get end game victory points, but you're also making like kind of pick up and deliver style with the mice to get more victory points and completing little objectives. So it all looks pretty cute and cool, like the core mechanic. And there's like this cat that will like put his paws down on different parts of the clock and kind of lock out actions. And there's a solo mode. So that's what I know, but it seemed, pretty neat at a first like little pass. And the other one I talked to them about, I don't know if it's on BGG yet, Peter, but it's called Red Rains, the Corpse of Viros or Viros. This was recently announced. They didn't actually have anything to say, but they just confirmed, yes, this exists. So Red Rains is the upcoming solo co-op campaign for Ashes Reborn, Rise of the Phoenix Born, which is like their
so it's rains like raining, not rains like a horse reigns.
Yes, sorry, I should have clarified. But yeah, so again, there's not really much to know, but it's going to be a solo co-op way to play Ashes Reborn, which is a 1v1 like deck construction sort of tactical card-based combat game. So that's it. I just wanted to mention it. We can go on to Wise Wizards because I don't really know much to say about it yet.
And I am pretty excited about this one, actually, because I was happy that Keyforge did it. It's funny, our solo co-op universe, they're like making a lot more solo co-op stuff for these games that were like competitive. And I know some of your favorite games are head-to-head battler games as well.
Yeah. And usually I make solo or co-op for them if they don't have it already.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, same thing. Like, it was very late in the life cycle, but Fantasy Flight did something like that for the Legends of the Five Ring, their version of Legends of the Five Ring card game. So the idea, like, this one sounds more like if it goes well, they're going to support it for a while, and it's going to become like a core mode with extra expansions of the game. So easier time playing these competitive games that are often very intimidating to teach a new player to and to get them into. I'm all for it.
And it sounds like, from what I've heard also, that they're planning on making this part of every future expansion. So it's not like a one-off thing. Like, when you buy the expansion, they're going to have a solo mission, at least, in each of these. At least that's their intent as of now, from what I understand. But we got Pencil Polly, who says the danglies are called pendulums, at least when they're on clocks. And then he laughed. Or she laughed.
Thanks. I know a lot about clocks, clearly.
The danglies are actually different from the pendulum. The pendulum's the thing that moves the gears.
And it
the
swings back
danglies
and
are the counterweights.
Now they go up and down?
Yes, they go up and down. That's how you wind like a grandfather clock. You have to.
Hey guys, I have a hand.
What?
Look at this. It can do stuff.
What are you saying?
What?
I'm emphasizing my own ignorance with life in general.
Oh, okay.
That was the joke. The intended joke.
Explain it some more. It'll get funnier.
Yeah.
That's funnier the more.
That is how humor works.
That's how humor works. All right. So the next game we went to. So should I look at Volume 1, Volume 2, or just?
I think either one stands on its own.
Yeah, what difference does
it matter?
Yeah. So this game, we did play this together. The second, no, did we play it?
We have never played.
We got
this.
a demo of it.
I have still not played.
He explained it to us, but we didn't play it.
It was a pretty in-depth demo, though. So yes, I felt like we played it, but we totally did not. You're right.
And by the way, make sure you're on Kapow Volume 1 or Volume 2, because there was an earlier edition of this game that did not have any solo co-op in it.
Yes. So Kapow, I'm on Volume 1 right now. There's 2 whole pictures of it. So it's a superhero versus supervillain battling game, head-to-head battling game. But again, they're having a full-on co-op / solo mode where you can fight against one, or if you own both Volume 1 and Volume 2, I think you have to have to play a co-op. And you can do a 2v2 versus the enemies. And similar to Bullet, which I know we'll talk about later, you basically flip over the hero or villain card, and on the other side is their like solo enemy card, right? So there's like 3 heroes, 3 villains in each of these packs, and then so that means there's 6 potential villains to fight against, or not villains, but AI
six like solo AI bosses to fight against in each set. Yeah. No, I'm pretty excited to try this one. I have a review copy. I have not gotten it to the table yet. I've been distracted by a different game I'll talk about later.
Both review copies. You got Volume 1 and Volume 2.
I did give up. Well, I wanted to try out the co-op, so yes. But I'm excited about this one because there's a lot of growth turn to turn. Like, you're actually adding dice to your pool permanently, and then you're also building these action dice, like putting faces on them.
Yes.
So you can really like, and it is, this is probably going to be a pro or con depending on your taste, but there is a hidden element to it in that you are rolling your dice and assigning them. So I might do a huge attack this turn, and if you guess that, you might do a huge defense, kind of negate it all, or you might make the entirely wrong call and just get your face punched in. So I'm not sure yet how I'm going to feel about that for competitive, but I'm definitely excited to try out the solo co-op and see how that is.
Yeah, so it tells you, like, at the bottom, it tells you not only your health, but what dice you roll. And there are different colored dice. It looks like there's blue, purple, green, yellow, and red dice, as well as one die that you get to customize when you play.
Well, but you can add more.
No, you can add more than that.
No, but that's
like
how you start. That's how you start.
Well, yes, correct.
And then as you roll dice, like the right column is called the power-up. So there's an attack column, a defense column, and a power-up column. And if you're basically matching symbols to, and if you're looking on the stream right now, you're going to get a way better feel for what this looks like. So I'll go through an example of this one. It says Biff use any die to do 1 base attack. Zap is use a fist and any die to do a 3 base attack, and so on. And then they have Wallop, which is an attack kicker, which is +2 to your attack if you use a fist. So you're going to basically be placing dice on these symbols to activate the attack and the kickers and things like that. But there's a right column, which is your power-ups, which will let you add die faces to your, like, you have 1 basically blank D6 that you get that you can easily, and it's very cool. Like, I haven't played too many of these dice building games where you're actually clicking faces on and then you can, like, pull them off. But it was neat, and it seemed to work. I don't think it's going to make that much difference as far as the weight goes, because the faces themselves seem pretty light. So I don't think the dice, I mean, I'm sure there's some, not randomness to the rolling because of these, but at the same time, it was pretty neat how you could add different faces. So if you wanted to do a lot of fist stuff, you just add more fist faces to those dice or whatever else. I am very interested in this one as well. It seems like it'll be a competitor to something like Dice Throne.
Yeah, actually, I think that is a really good comp, because in a lot of, like, the games that I play, like the 1v1 games, like, Exceed and BattleCon and Sakura Arms, usually there's not much buildup of the characters. It's more like, it's trying to model something like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, where you have your unique character and you're blasting each other. But Dice Throne, with the leveling up of your abilities and, like, the gaining of tokens and stuff, I think that's much. Yeah, you're right. Those are closer to each other. And
except you don't have a hand of cards. I mean, there are definitely differences, and it's not Yahtzee style where you're rolling 3 times or whatever. But, but no, there was definitely some cool stuff. And we got Brant Sanderson from the Portal Gaming podcast, as well as the Step Into the Portal on YouTube as well. He says that his friend designed this game, so it's very cool.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to play it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Brant is a good friend of the channel, so that's why I shouted him out specifically here. Yeah. So that is Kapow. Anything, Jerry, anything to add? Or?
No, I think you covered it. I thought it was interesting looking.
And you're not typically a huge fan of these head-to-head battlers, right?
Not typically. This one had some interesting wrinkles, as far as whether you spend your dice on, attack, or do you spend more time building up. I'm a little curious as to whether the defense column is going to be worth it. Like, Mike, for your example, if you're doing a big attack and I just put all my stuff in defense, that didn't move the ball any further along.
Right.
Either way. Yeah. So I'm not sure. But I didn't
like they said the defense column gave you something for the next turn. Am I wrong about that, Mike? Or am I missing?
Some of them did, and they're also, like, many of the characters also have defensive powers that are also, like, offensive and, riposte, kind of like hit him back kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, not much use speculating. I'll play it this week probably, and then I'll be able to say more soon.
So I'm curious what they do with that, but
yeah. And I'm sure something like Dice Throne, where some characters are probably more defensive. And so when you do defense, maybe they always take a point of retaliation or whatever else. And
then that's going to play to the whole, like, second guessing. Like, if I know you're the more defensive character and I assume you're going to defend, does that mean that I don't attack you and then you just smash me because I didn't think it was coming? I don't know. There could be some, like, fun kind of, like, second guessing sort of stuff. Or it'll be terrible. Who knows?
Or not.
Nice.
The full range of possibilities exist in this moment. It's a Schrodinger's cat game,
There you go.
That's awesome. Okay, we did not play Black Cat, by the way, or Cat in a Box, or whatever it's called. Although I do want to try that, because we do like. Well, that's been a hot one both at Gen Con and here, and something we haven't talked about. But of all of the games that I missed at both conventions, that is the one I'm most interested in playing, because I love trick-taking games. So, and that one's supposed to be pretty good. So there you go. There's a game we didn't play at all, didn't see at all. Well. And yet I still talked about it, because
that's the quality coverage you get here at One Stop Co-op Shop.
I mean, it's your one stop for speculation, news, and reviews. Yes. So, but I mean, I think that's probably one of the games of the con at both cons. Like, I mean, I keep hearing about that game. So, yeah, I do want to try that one at some point. But let's keep going. So that was it for me for the vendor hall that day. Did you guys see anything else at the vendor hall, or We split up at
Yeah,
this
the only
point.
other one, if you want to pull it up, that I'll mention is The Light in the Mist. Light in the Mist, Peter.
I'm working on it.
This is a company that I've never talked to before, but I've seen some of their stuff and been curious. They're called Post Curious. That was not on purpose, by the way, the company. So The Light in the Mist came out this year, I believe. They also had, I think it's called like The Emerald Flame, but this is the one I got a review copy of.
It's like tarot cards.
Yeah, so this one is like tarot based. Emerald Flame was like different art pieces, but basically the general sense I get about their games, I have not tried any of them yet, is that it's sort of like an escape room mystery-ish, like solving puzzles game, or all the games they do, but it's also tied with like really unique and nicely done art. And there's also like a narrative aspect. Like I did open this one, and there's like a little like kind of narrative book that sort of goes with the puzzle. So I think you're kind of working through a story at the same time. I asked for this one specifically because my wife loves tarot cards, and just from the beautiful art, from the good reviews I've seen online, and from just the good like kind of press I've heard about this company in general, I'm excited to play it. But that's all I have to say. I have not read any rules. They didn't. I like basically. I was like, "Hello, can I try your game?" Like as I was running to our Wise Wizards appointment, so I didn't even like get to hear about how it works. So yeah, I'm excited to try it, but no idea what it is yet, really.
It says a tarot puzzle tale.
Yep, those 3 words that are smashed together do discard all the things I know about the game.
Yes. So I will say that we're over an hour in. We're only through day 1. Trust me, we did nothing day 3, which was Sunday, and
that does help.
Day 2 will be much quicker, at least on my end. I got literally nothing to talk about.
Do we want to talk about what we played Friday night, like briefly, even just like list it?
Yep.
So Jerry and I, and who we play with, Liz was there, right?
You're talking about
Friday night with Bullet and Pinball?
It was with Bullet was with Liz, and then Super Skill Pinball was with Liz and Alyssa from Heavy
Cardboard. Yeah. So Liz Davidson I should be clear. Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire. So yeah, we played Bullet. That remains. Each time I play it, I'm reminded that this is one of my like top 10 games.
Did you play co-op or did you play it competitive?
We did play co-op. Yeah, Liz had never played it before, and she wanted to try it, and she really enjoyed it. She says she's going to go buy it once she gets home.
It is still a game.
Yeah, Jerry doesn't like it as much as me, but for me,
I really like it. Jerry hates anime, is what it boils down to.
I do hate
it. I think if it had a totally new art style, it would go up several notches in Jerry's estimation.
That is highly likely, yes.
And then WizKids gave us a review copy of Super Skill Pinball Ramp Up, which is not the most recent set of Super Skill Pinball, which is a roll and write that I've covered before, but it is one of the newer sets than the first one.
The newest one, there's a holiday-themed one, and there's a Star Trek-themed one.
A Star Trek one, exactly.
They talked to us about that as well.
I continue to think it's great, and I continue to think it's better for solo. That's about all I have to say. What about you, Jerry?
I would... If I like solo games, I'd like it much, much more solo. It has a definite downtime problem when you're playing it multiplayer.
I didn't have any downtime. I was...
Yeah, well...
Yeah, so all 3 rounds, I was the last one to finish. So, like... Liz and Alyssa and Jerry were just staring at me. I was like, rolling dice.
You might be able to get away with it as a 2-player game. As a 4-player game, no.
Jerry's just like, yeah, not at all.
I mean, and it's not to say the mechanics of the game are poor or that it's not fun. It is fun, but there's a point where, your ball is done and you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, waiting, and there's literally nothing you can do at that point except scream at the other players.
I mean, is it like
unless you just like start round 2.
Rah, 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 rah.
I guess I could have beat the table and yelled rah, 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 but then they would have kicked me out.
And Peter, you didn't play anything Friday night, right? You were just hanging out with people?
I did not. So the Friday night was the whiskey night. I literally just hung out. I'll name drop a little. I mean, the people I talked to the most were Bonacore. So Stephen Bonacore and Henry Audubon and the Secret Cabal guys were there. And then I talked to somebody from, I have his business card, I can't remember, but one of the producers, like Panda. Like, I'm shilling for his competitor. But I spent a lot of time talking to him about game production bits and stuff as well. So The whole point of this is, you know, if you are looking to as a designer, because I know that's a good portion of our audience, if you're, or, you know, as somebody who's just interested in hearing or learning about the insides of the industry, going to events like PAX are a great opportunity to mix and mingle with people in the industry, and really get to know them on a personal level. So, but that was about it.
Yeah, so Saturday, this was, yeah, like I spent less time in the vendor hall because I'd already seen so many things. Should we just like take turns? Because we all kind of split off and did our own thing.
Yep.
Until the evening, yeah.
So here, I'll go through mine because I think I have more than anybody else. I'll go through mine quickly.
Yep.
I met with Czech Games Edition. They showed me Deal with the Devil, which is a 4-player only, app-based, hidden, like, role, completely competitive game. That's all I'll say about that because we're clearly never covering it. And I got to see Starship Captains, but I'll save that because we played that Saturday night, so I think it's more interesting to talk about when we played it. But then the only one that's like new that I got to see is they did tell me about the second expansion coming for Lost Ruins of Arnak. There are going to be 2 new leaders, which are like kind of the unique characters they added in the first expansion. There's going to be a printed version of the campaign that's been available in the app so far, and it's really good, like the solo campaign with I think some additions and like changes. But then the thing that's most exciting for me, but that they had no details on besides this, is that there's going to be co-op play. And I think maybe even the solo campaign will be co-op playable. So I think all 3 of us, Jerry, do you like it? Or just
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, all 3 of us really like Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yep.
Like definitely one of the better.
And my family likes it as well.
Nice. So yeah, so slam dunk. Whenever this expansion is ready, we're going to cover it and be excited for it. But that's about all I got. I played a game called Conquest Princess that's going to be coming to crowdfunding next year. I'm not sure yet how I feel about it. It's like super crazy theme, like as crazy as Cosmoctopus, just name dropping Henry Audubon's game. You're like part of like fashion police on a spaceship that turns into a robot that surfboards. But you're like trying to like fight like a fashion maven that's nicknamed after Mugatu from Zoolander. And like you're jumping down to planets, but it's like sort of pandemic-ish, but you're trying to like capture like pieces, but then there's like different scenarios that all like combine together. I don't really know how I feel about it yet, but it was fun, and the designer's an awesome guy, so I will look into it more and potentially do a video. I played Final Girl Season 2. They had early like airlifted copies of the Season 2 bosses and stages. Liz and I played it again. That's sort of like a PAX tradition now. Like we've played Final Girl in one form or another together, like solo together every PAX. And we played the Alien-inspired one.
2.
Yes. Fair enough. No, because we played
three.
Yeah, it was 3 PAXs. Like when Final Girl was first announced, we also played it, and that was like when we did our reviews and stuff of it. So I continue to love Final Girl. We played as the Ellen Ripley-inspired heroine against the Alien-inspired boss on the Sulaco. Nostromo was the first movie, right?
Nostromo was the first. Sulaco.
Yeah. I mean, I will say they mixed some things. It has like some aliens and alien mixed in there. We airlocked the alien. It was great. I played Where's My Ride, which I think is currently on crowdfunding from people who do what's the betting one that also have the dungeon crawler, like the D&D betting drinking game?
Red Dragon Inn?
Yeah, Red Dragon Inn. Thank you. So it's for the people who do Red Dragon Inn. It's a sort of a
right?
No. That is a different company.
Oh.
But yeah, so it's Where's My Ride? It's on crowdfunding. It's a Mysterium-esque but quicker and simpler, like giving clues visually. Like you're trying to figure out like where the car is out of these locations. It was fine.
Its tagline is a cooperative game of deduction and emojis.
Yes, yeah. So basically, one side communicates through emojis, and the other side communicates through text on like the Ride app, cards that have like text messages. So it's like these vague text messages, these vague emojis, these like 9 or 12 locations that the car could be on, and you're trying to figure out like, again, it reminded me a lot of Mysterium, except like more vagueness in like language and emojis instead of like art.
Yeah. So example is one of these says fun and profit. There's the kissy emoji. There's one that says disinfected, and it's got the poop emoji and the like celebration emoji with the like party hat on it. And then another one says porta potty, and it's got like somebody with a monocle and somebody else slapping themselves in the face. So yeah, if I'm looking at these cards as clues, I have no idea what is going on. Like,
so, but like the map is like an aerial view of the locations. So what I found myself doing was like giving clues that sort of match, and also they have names of like the place, like the gym or like the food store, like, you know, whatever. So actually it did work pretty well. Like we were able to communicate. I guessed it when we had like, you basically, the ride ranking is going down. So it starts at 5 stars and you slowly go down to like 4, 3, 2 as you take longer. So I think I got like a 3-star win. So it was fun. You know, I think it's a lot smaller and easier to teach than something like Mysterium, and definitely faster. So I'd probably pick to play it over Mysterium, but certainly Mysterium is a more involved and interesting and like pretty game.
I mean, that says something though, because Mysterium's like was a big deal not long ago. So to say that you would choose this over Mysterium's,
but that's just because I don't want to play Mysterium for 2 hours. You know,
Okay.
This game was 15 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I think that says more about Mike than
that's more about
the
me
respective
and my
games.
gaming preferences and what I have time for, like with big, like, because there's like a more party-based cooperative game, and I don't need those to be long generally.
He's a sucker for the poop emoji.
That too. 3 more quick ones. I played this. I had it next to me because they gave me like a little. This is 2 entire fighters. There's another 1v1 game, Pocket Paragons. Pocket Paragons.
I played
Pocket
that.
Paragon.
That'll look great on the podcast, Mike.
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, so it's a
said
3-minute.
this.
It literally takes that long. It's a 3-minute dueling game with unique characters. Because it's 3 minutes, I don't find it nearly as enthralling as the bigger games that I like. But you know, it has its place. But what I'm really excited, or at least intrigued by, is that they have a solo mode. Now they didn't have it for me to play there, but it's going to be baked in, kind of like Maximum Apocalypse with their backwards compatibility. It's going to be baked into like every set you buy from now on.
It's very rock paper scissors, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it is. It's not as extreme in the rock paper scissors as something like Yomi, because there's like 6 suits. So the rock paper scissors is not as direct, and you're not always countering each other that way.
So it's rock paper scissors lizard Spock.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. I'm excited to hopefully cover the solo mode if they can, get it to me, or if I can find it to buy. Last 2, Starfighters. This it's called Starfighters, Peter. This one I think was on crowdfunding earlier this year. It's a real-time, like tactical kind of Starfighters Rapid Fire. That's the whole name. Real-time like dog fighting on a little map, like Fast and Furious looking kind of game.
It's got cool
and it
artwork.
has a solo mode where like you're fighting against like a space station, but they still have like they have like an app or a timer, and like every 10 seconds something bad, like if you don't do something before like this 10 or 15 second timer goes off, then the enemy attacks before you do, and you have to stop rolling. So if you want to get initiative, you have to like finish before the timer goes off. I'm vaguely interested in it. I like little tactical.
It's got cool little minis, and like
it's got cool like
tiny
in the
board. It looks like.
Yeah, it looks very small, very quick, very light. Again, like something I might play with my kids. The last one the ones that I'm most excited to play, but I did not get a chance to demo it, but I've been hearing great things from everyone who's tried it, is Clank Catacombs, the latest Clank set. So Clank Catacombs. So basically, I did get to watch it explained and watch some other people playing. The big, like, kind of major change here is that now the dungeon is procedurally generated by the players from a set of tiles. So they have rules about, like, how the artifacts, if you don't know Clank, you're, like, going into a dungeon, grabbing an artifact and running out and trying to, like, escape with the most victory points. So now they have, like, a rule for how the artifacts come out based on how deep in the dungeon you are. But whenever you move into a place, you get to flip the tile, and then you get to rotate it to any of the 4 orientations and kind of like set it up so that it's most advantageous for you. They have it's like a standalone, but you can still combine it with the old Clank stuff. And yeah, I've just heard like the dungeon exploration is way more interesting. The big one that I'm interested in is that they always have had a solo app for Clank games, both for original Clank and Clank in Space. And I've heard from people who have played this one that it's like far and away the best one and the most interesting. I don't know why yet. I should have downloaded it and looked at it, but I've heard that it is the best. So from everything I hear, except for maybe the Legacy, which I've heard is really good, this appears to be by far and certainly the best one-off way to play Clank, and the best solo way to play Clank. So yeah, I'm really hoping to get a chance to actually play this.
You know what these tiles remind me of is Suro.
Yeah, I mean, Clank's always had like kind of that pathing, but you're right. The two on each side is very
two on
Suro-ish.
each side. So if you don't know Suro, it's a game where you're like just trying not to bump into each other's. Yeah, each of the tiles.
You're trying not to hit a dead end. I thought,
or hit
or
a
fly
dead
off
end.
the board.
Fly off the edge. Fly off the edge. There are no dead ends. The only deadness is flying off the edge. I mean, there's dead ends that will save you.
If you run into each other, you both get knocked out. But basically, each of the tiles there has two things on each end, but it's really what's in the middle that makes them different. And you just have to follow the path in Suro. But here, it's very similar where you have two things on each end, and any of these tiles can combine with each other to, so it doesn't matter how you place it, the orientation, as Mike said, you'll always come up with this unique map each time you play it.
Yeah, and they played with like a different map each time a bit with Clank in Space, where you had like these big boards that would go together slightly differently each game. But I've just heard this is like way more exciting and interesting and varied, like play to play. And I already enjoy base Clank. Oh, and also like they added other things. It's harder to get stuck in the dungeon now because you have like these teleporters you can use. You just might not get as many victory points, which I know has been a complaint of the game. So it sounds like, at least for me and my taste, probably the best version of the game and one I really want to try.
Cool. All right. Nothing else?
Nah, that's that. Yeah, sorry. That was a lot of Mike, but that's it until Saturday night playing.
All right. Jerry, you did role-playing most of the day, right? Or did you have any board games before that?
I checked out some of the stuff in the hall. Really, the only one I'll mention is one called The Shivers, which is it's like, it seemed almost like a mystery game, like an escape room kind of thing. But the gimmick is that there's these rooms that are essentially pop-ups. So you open the room and then they pop up with like furniture and all the other stuff.
That's
and then you can, yeah, and you can make the room different from scenario to scenario by putting in a piece of cardboard in the back that kind of sits in a slot that changes up some of the things. So like in one scenario, a bookshelf might have certain books on it that you could investigate. But in another scenario, it might have, a bust on there instead.
So I thought you were going to say you could change the rooms with scissors. I was like,
no. Anyway, it looked interesting. It seemed a little bit more freeform than I would really consider a traditional board game, because it has to have a game master. And it's not supposed to be adversarial like one versus many, but the game master is kind of just facilitating the game for everybody else. And they have to make decisions like the players can decide to do something off the wall, and the game master has to decide whether they could do it, and if so, should they roll a die to get it done, or should insanity ensue, or whatever, guided by this by the scenario book that they're given. So it's almost RPG light kind of thing. It seemed like it might be an interesting family game, but it was a crowdfunded game that should be shipping to backers shortly, I think, or even now. It'd be in the process of doing so. So might be something to look at if you're, interested in like mystery puzzle games that you want to play with perhaps a family. But other than that, I did do one RPG at PAX, and that was the One Ring. Again, I had also done that at Gen Con, and my review is the same basically as it was at Gen Con, which is I had a blast playing it. I think that might have been due to the game master and not the mechanics. I still can't figure out whether I like the mechanics or not. But yet again, I had fun playing the game. So at some point, how many times do I have to play it and have fun playing the game where the mechanics don't really matter anymore? Or maybe it's the mechanics that are facilitating the fun and I just don't recognize it. But yeah, I had fun, but the feeling is it was despite the core system in the game. So I won't get into detail.
Not because of.
Yeah.
So Saturday was my family day. my wife and 2 kids came in. It was my son's 15th birthday, so I really wanted to make it a fun day for him. So we spent the whole day together. We honestly didn't play a whole lot. We ended up going to Wild Bill's and getting sodas, which is a thing that they have at all the conventions where you like buy a mug for like $40, but then like any convention you go to in the future, you pay $7 a day to get unlimited refills. Now that unlimited refills is very limited, first of all, by your bladder size, but also because there are huge lines at these things, and so it takes a while for you to fill up and get a refill. But so we ended up doing that. So I mean, it took some time to do those things. Then we went and got lunch together. But then my kids wanted to paint miniatures, and while they were doing that, my wife saw a game earlier that she was interested in called Habitats. And I thought this was a new game, but apparently came out in 2016. Who knew?
Apparently the publishers.
I mean, the publishers knew. So we did play the newest version, which was by BoardGameTables.com. And it's an interesting game, but Jerry and I will talk about it more later. But basically, you are grabbing tiles from a middle row as you move your, like, there are these little, like, jeeps you move around, and you're picking up tiles as you go. And placing them on your personal like map board in front of you. And as you place animals, you're trying to place habitats next to them that they want to live in. And once you do that, you put a little check mark on them, or they have little meeples you could put on that are like custom to every different animal, which was ridiculous, but it's how we played there at the con. And so you put these little things on to mark that basically you scored that tile, and you get the points for it. The most interesting thing for me was at the end of every round, which is different based on like round 1. Like for a 2-player game, it was like 10 turns, and then it was 7 turns for round 2 and 7 more turns for round 3. But you're going to have 2 goals that you're trying to achieve, and whoever gets like more in those 2 goals will score the points for that round, but then everything else just scores at the end. So I don't know. I found it interesting, but we'll get Jerry's take on it later. We obviously liked it enough to buy it, so this was a purchase for me. And that's really all I did during the day Saturday until I went to WizKids at the end of the day. So I guess I'll talk about that, because did you guys cover everything until that evening, basically?
Yep.
Okay. So then I went to WizKids, not WizKids.
I was about to say, we already talked about WizKids.
Yeah, but,
No, it wasn't. It was Ascension.
Stoneblade.
So I went to Stoneblade, and they were talking about they have a new version of Ascension Tactics coming out, which is going to be backward compatible, but it'll also be standalone. So it'll come with standees, but they're very cool 3D printed miniatures they had with it. One of the cool new mechanics they had, so if you think of Ascension, which is a deck builder, Ascension Tactics is a deck builder with a board where you are moving around trying to control points, trying to points on the board to score victory points or crystals or whatever they call it. But so as you normally you just use attack to like do damage to an enemy, but when you use attack in Ascension Tactics, it's to activate troops that you have on the board. They'll move a certain number of spaces. Again, you're trying to get things. One of the cool parts about the original Ascension Tactics is that it's solo co-op, which was playable for only 1 or 2 players. Well, with this new expansion, not only do they have new mechanics, so if you think of a deck builder, every time they come up with a new expansion, they're going to have new mechanics. What they have here is heroes that upgrade. So for example, they have ARHA Arha Paladin, and it says Slay, transform into the Manicore Knight. So you flip the card over, and now you replace the miniature or standee with this freaking cool knight riding on a Manicore, right? It changes their stats, all this. So basically, whenever they defeat another unit, they can upgrade to this like more powerful unit, which was kind of cool. So I guess I should have looked up Ascension Tactics for people on the but that is the sorry.
He's had a stroke.
Well, I'm trying to type at the same time, So I can look up the game, so I can show pictures. Because I've done it for literally every other game except for this one. Yes, so that is the point of Ascension Tactics. You are basically going around and on a board. But so not only do they have new mechanics in this one, but the cooler part is they've expanded co-op to up to 4 players. So you can play up to 4 players against the AI on this. So I don't know. I think it's one to keep an eye out for. They are kickstarting it. Let's see. I got a thing here. Crowdfunding. Yes, it may not be. It may not be kickstarted. Let's see.
Did you say like March or April? Remember?
Yeah, they said early 2023. So, but they're going to have all new expansions. It is going to continue the story of the first one, but again, if you don't care about the stories of these things, then it doesn't really matter. But basically, you defeated somebody in the first one, apparently. I know, spoiler alert. I know you're shocked that you actually defeat somebody at the end of it, but then you invade their home world, basically. So the maps will be, in that vein as well. So you have new maps. It'll be completely standalone, but the nice part is you'll not only their new mechanics, but you'll be able to play it up to 4 characters or against the AI as well. Mike, I know you didn't come see this with me, but did you have any comments on Ascension Tactics, or did you want to just keep flowing?
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm definitely interested in more exciting heroes is cool. So the idea that they level up or transform sounds neat, but I'll just have to see it. And yeah, I'm curious how the 4-player co-op pacing will be. I remember I thought there were differences in kind of the pacing between solo and co-op, so I'm curious to see how they do, kind of upping the player count even more.
And then the other big thing they have is Hero Realms Dungeons. I didn't get too much information.
No, that was Wise Wizards with Kapow.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, so they have a digital version of that as well, which I have. I may end up trying that because they have. Apparently...
Well, no, that's just regular Hero Realms. Hero Realms Dungeon is an upcoming set for Hero Realms. But Jason did a video on it for the main channel already, so I don't think we need to talk about that one too much. It's more Hero Realms. It takes some of the stuff from the Ruins of Thandar campaign, but also lets you do one-off play or bring some of the campaign stuff into competitive play. Looks cool. If you like Hero Realms, it's more and cooler Hero Realms stuff.
Are there dungeons?
Yes. Theoretically.
Truth in advertising. There you go.
Clearly. All right. So then that night I was meant to meet up with you all and play some games, and I got held up grabbing my dinner, and you guys just started without me. So that's why I literally played no more games with them. They literally grabbed Jason and Jeremy, and they're like, I was completely replaced. So you played what, the Captains game, Starship Captains?
Yeah, we played Starship Captains 4-player with Jeremy Howard and Jason Perez. And then Seta Watch. Did Jason swap out with Liz for that one?
Yeah.
Did you want to
that's
talk
right.
a
But
little
we
bit?
played that after Heat, and we also played Heat with Liz and Jeremy. So Jeremy Howard was in all the games. Jason for Starship Captains. So I guess we can just go in order.
Yep.
So yeah, Starship Captains, I mentioned that's a new one from Czech Games Edition. It's 1 to 4 players, so you got a solo mode. I haven't tried that yet. But it's very quick, light, kind of worker placement, although you don't really place the workers, worker use, worker management. I don't know. But you have these little crew member meeples, and you're using them to take actions on your spaceship. You're also leveling up your spaceship with these tech cards, and you're moving around to these planets, fighting pirates and completing sort of Star Trek themed missions. It's all very much kind of in the art style of a Star Trek parody or homage, however you want to say it. And yeah, you only play over 4 rounds. Like I said, it's very quick. And probably the most unique mechanical thing is this queue of your workers, of your crew members, in that as you use them, they go to the back of the queue. And at the start of each round, you push all of them forward except the last 3. So some of your workers will kind of be out of commission and out of availability. You can also level them up and make them commanders or turn them into different colors to access different actions more. So yeah, that's kind of the core of it. Jerry, how do you feel about this one from your first game?
I mean, I won, so it's one of the best games I've ever played. It's good, but not great, in my opinion. I enjoyed playing it, but the theme wasn't quite as strong as I would have liked. Like some of it is just like Euro tracks, like, you know, go here, complete this mission, and move 2 on the track. It seemed kind of thematically disconnected, but it is quick, which is a nice feature, and it's cute, and the mechanics were inoffensive. So, I mean, that sounds worse than I mean it. I did have fun playing it, but it's not the best game I've ever played.
Yeah, I would say so far, not having tried the solo mode yet, I'm in about the same place. I appreciated how fast it was. I'm also like worried it's almost too fast. But you know, it was a 4-player game. Well, that's weird. Yeah, so I don't know. Like when I'm playing it 2-player and it's over in half an hour, is it going to seem too fast? I don't know. The art's great. I like the components. I agree with Jerry that the theme is not really living as much as I wish it would as a big Star Trek fan. But it's fun to level up your ship. The actions are kind of fun to figure out. It's like a little bit puzzly, but it's not too tough. I can definitely play it with like my oldest, which is a benefit for me. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like a heavy Euro, this is not going to do anything for you.
Nope.
Yeah, and I think this is one you probably want to look up on either on Board Game Geek while you're hearing about it, or you know, watch the YouTube stream, because the components tell you a lot.
Yeah. And I'll do a video of the solo mode soon, so you know I'll give my thoughts then. But yeah, like Jerry said, I had a fun time. I have no problem playing it again. I'm going to play it again. It will not be my top game of the year.
Nice. All right, so you played the original Set a Watch?
Well, yeah, first we played Heat, which is the very recent racing game from Days of Wonder, partially based on the Flamme Rouge bike racing system. So it's card-based play. It's racing. There you go. That's the entire game right there. Card racing. How else?
It's a simplified racing game.
Oh, Heat pedal to the metal. At least the basic.
Yeah.
Yes, Heat pedal to the metal.
All right, I was like, why is this?
At least the base game. I'd say it's like a simplified racing game.
Yeah, so they have weather effects you can add. They have AI that I played with today are an incredibly smooth to add in, which is really nice to just even like fill out a competitive game roster or to play it solo. They have upgrades. You can kind of like build a unique deck for your car with a ton of upgrade cards. 4 different tracks in the base game, and I've played, I think, all 4 of them now. I've been playing this game a lot. This by the way, I said this in my video already, but this was by far my game of the con. I didn't know it was my game of the con necessarily when I first played it, but having come home now and played it solo several times with my kids several times, this might be one of my top games of the year by the time that I play it more. But I love racing games. I can see Jerry's face not feeling that positively about it. So Jerry, why don't you bring me down to earth a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like I have to be the voice of sanity here because I keep hearing about, you know, Heat. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's fine. It's a racing game. You change gears. You play cards that have numbers on them, and you move that number of spaces. There's no blocking, which is nice in some ways. It's one of the things I didn't like about Rallyman.
Right.
Is the blocking aspect. Blocking combined with luck, where you can essentially just lose an entire turn. Right. You can lose an entire turn.
It is a much more forgiving play than Rallyman. Yes. Rallyman being my other favorite racing game, and these are going to be fighting each other, I think, in my brain in the next several months.
Yeah. Now I felt, you know, I won Heat too. Just had to throw that in there, but it seemed somewhat random to me. At least what we played. We played like Italy 2 laps or something like that. And I saw where there was strategy in there, and you know, the push your luck. Jeremy pushed his luck too far, and his car essentially blew up right before the finish line. So I won. But a lot of it seemed a little bit sort of random, especially the drafting thing. Whether you are able to draft and advance 2 spaces or not is essentially random. You're not. Because there's no blocking, it's not like you can set cars up. You're just guessing at what the other players are going to do. So
I'll disagree a little bit having played more. I think it feels much less random than Rallyman and Formula D, to name 2 of the other like biggest racing games.
Well, yeah, to me it looks a lot like Formula D, where you're like trying to hit certain speeds at corners and things like that. Except obviously it's card based. So am I on base at all with that? Am I off base?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, especially so Jerry, like I've been playing with the AI, so like I'll have 5 or 6 cards in the race. And like kind of the spaces people are trying to get to and how far they can move, like with the turns coming up and stuff. So I've been able to drift like fairly consistently.
Well, it's a lot easier to drift fairly consistently when there's 4 other cars.
Well, of course, and that's what I'm saying.
Track.
Like, I think the ease of using the AI is going to encourage most players to probably have 5 to 6. I don't think there's any reason not to have 5 to 6 cars every game. Like literally running the solo turn or the AI turn takes 5 seconds. It's minuscule.
Well, and that's one thing I've heard is that it like because the AI is so easy to run, you want to play this at like maximum player count and just have the AI in pretty much every game to help with that drifting and everything else.
Like it's interesting. They have space in the core box that I got. I got a review copy from Asmodee.
Did I keep saying drifting?
Yeah, you did. Slipstreaming.
Drafting.
Well, no. You said drafting. You said
drafting. Okay. Well, that's what I meant.
They call it slipstreaming in the game. But yeah, so it's interesting that in the core game, they have holders for 8 cars. They have holders for 8 player pawns. They have holders for 8 player card decks. And they have on the boards spaces for 8 cars in terms of the placement, like in terms of where you end up in the ranking.
How many cards does it come with, Mike?
6
Must
cards.
Be 8. Oh,
it's literally it feels like hot dogs and hot dog buns all over again. So yeah, I imagine
the first expansion's going to give you 2 more cards.
Yeah, well, and the one thing is that I don't think maybe they do actually. That I think I didn't look at it, but I don't think they had 8 cars represented on the solo card sheet. But it's also only 10 cards, so if they just had to include 10 cards that had 8 colors instead of 6 in the expansion, that would not be a drastic cost for them in their production. Yes.
Right. Well, let's go to Set a Watch. Unless you got some final thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'll let Jerry focus on Set a Watch. I've already reviewed that one, and I talked too much about Heat. So go ahead, Jerry.
So this was the base game, right?
Correct. The original deluxe edition of the base game.
And this was a second review copy we got because we got rid of the first one, right? Just to be...
I wouldn't even get... Like, they just had swag bags people were picking up. So we happened to randomly get it in a bag. It was
it's not like it was a review copy or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the original review was years ago. Anyway, we mentioned this earlier, but the basic summary for me for a Set of Watches, I really enjoy the core gameplay loop. However, the game is too long at 8 rounds, and you should never play it with more than 3 players. Because if you play it with 3 players, because somebody has to basically watch the campfire every round, which means they sit out and don't do a whole lot. So if you're playing with 4 players, that's 1 player every turn does nothing, basically. If you play with 3 players, you're still playing with 4 characters. So you have the character that is, you can easily send off 1 character, and then the 3 players still have somebody to actually take actions during the turn. So I wouldn't recommend this for over 3 players. And it's entirely too long, but the core gameplay loop is fun. So I'd be interested in trying some of the later sets where they talk about addressing some of those issues.
Yeah, and I'll just agree with everything Jerry said. I also I never loved how they handled the character abilities, because there are some that are just like consistently better than others. So it was just kind of a question of how quickly. First of all, whether you got lucky enough to start with your best ones, or how quickly you could cycle through them with the camp things.
That's true.
Like that's a bit annoying. But honestly, like even if they just gave you the best 3 every game, I wouldn't really care. Like that would be fine because the characters would still feel different. So yeah, so if like the new set with like item decks, like you said, Peter, for more variety and a quicker play mode and a campaign mode, I think it all sounds cool. Like I'm less excited, or I should say I'm more excited about trying Maximum Apocalypse's newest version than I am about playing Set a Watch's newest version. And yet I liked Set a Watch base game better than Maximum Apocalypse base game. I just think this seems less iterative because the core game was already pretty good. So yeah, it was fine.
It was fine. So that leads to the second to last game I played of the con. So you're done, right, Mike? You didn't play anything else?
Oh, I guess we played a little bit of
Played
We started
Exit.
that exit on Sunday, but I'm
So
not worried about that.
Yeah, we played a little bit of one of the exits, and then Jerry and I played Habitat, so we can go back to that one real quick. But the big the big thing that was looking forward to all weekend was playing Gaia Project with Isaac Childress, designer of Gloomhaven. We'd played last year. I told the story from PAX last year. Go back and listen to that because this one's already gotten super long. But basically, it was at the Whiskey Night last year. I was not my best self, and yet I still almost won. This year, the awesome rematch, we ended up playing, so I ended up showing up. We decided to do it Saturday night, so not the night of the Whiskey Night. We ended up showing up to play Gaia Project, which is a Euro game, 4X exploration. One of my favorite, not 4X. Not at all. You're basically building stuff, building up an engine, whatever else. It's very similar to Terra Mystica if you've played that, but in my opinion, much better. Where you're just building on planets, you're upgrading your stuff. It's a very economic game. So we ended up playing Saturday night, and so I got there. I ended up setting up and playing this game, and there ended up being 5 players. Now, if you know anything about Gaia Project, you will know that the box says 1 to 4 players on it. And like I said, the solo mode, one of my favorite solo games of all time. The 5-player mode, there is an official, if you look on BGG, they're like, this is how you'd play with 5 players. And there's an expansion coming out, so I'm thinking maybe they're going to include rules for 5 or 6 players. But certainly you have to have 2 copies of the game to play 5 players. It is not the way it is certainly intended to be played out of the core box, at least. Thankfully, between the 5 of us, we had 4 copies of Gaia Project with us, so that was not a problem.
So you played 10-player?
We did not play 10-player. We did play 5-player. Well, we were originally looking to break it into 2 games of 3, but since we couldn't find anybody else to play that really knew the game, because we were all people who had played the game quite a bit, you know, as with any game, you've played quite a bit. I mean, Gaia Project is a pretty long game when you get to 3 or 4 players. Playing it 5 players, we still finished in like 2.5 hours. That just says how much the people knew the game, I think. Because this,
Dude, you spent 2.5 hours just drafting the races.
Yes.
At the beginning.
So that was the other thing. I'd never played with race drafting at the beginning. Usually it's like the last player gets to pick the race first, and then you go around the table. But we not only drafted races, but then we bid on the races with victory points. So we all started with 20 instead of 10, and there was a whole bidding thing that happened. Basically, yeah, this was all new to me. I hadn't done any of this stuff before. But, you know, end of the day, we ended up picking out our races. We ended up playing. So, yeah, this sounds like a lot of excuses for why I didn't do well. But, surprise, surprise, out of 5 players, I finished dead last. This did not go as well for me, and I almost got lapped. This is one of my worst games of Gaia Project I've ever played. I clearly made some mistakes early. I never came back from it. There were 3 of us that were, I mean, close, within 2 or 3 points of each other. It was like 95, 96, 97, or 95, 97, 98, or whatever.
And just to be clear, you were the 95 in that
Yeah,
scenario.
I was the last of the 3. Then there were 2 that were like, somebody had like 150, somebody else, being Isaac Childress, had like 170 points, something ridiculous like that. So yeah, this was not close at all.
Did he double or nothing you in this game or something like that?
I mean,
was he hustling you?
He maybe. I mean, I hadn't had anything to drink that night. I was completely sober. I even took a nap.
Oh,
ahead
there's
of time.
your problem.
So I was completely like focused.
I mean, it almost makes me think maybe you shouldn't play Gaia Project with 5 players.
Well, I mean, not only that, like they're just. Gaia Project is one of those games, and I could see where this would frustrate people, where if your engine is just behind, it's pretty hard to catch up.
You're done.
Yeah.
If you make early mistakes, you're done.
Yes. And you don't necessarily know that at the time. And the reason I love this game is because it didn't matter to me. I literally had fun all the way through. And the other thing is you don't necessarily know unless you know the game really well. So I actually thought I was in it until I looked at the like tech tracks and I realized that everybody else had like 3 or 4 techs maxed out, and I had no chance of winning any of the end game goals either. And the same people who were winning the tech tracks were also winning the end game goals. I was like, oh, my score, like the scores are pretty close throughout. Like I wasn't that far behind anybody else as far as the scoreboard goes. But when it came to end game scoring, I just got absolutely
I assure
destroyed.
you that Isaac knew that you.
Oh, I assure you that Isaac knew as well that I was not in it. Although, again, last time I played, I surprised everybody with the end game scoring because I actually caught up quite a bit at the end of the game. So yeah, I mean, mistakes were made. Clearly, I was using a race I had not used in the past, but I knew Isaac was bidding high on it, so I outbid him on it, which was apparently a mistake, because he just took the last race and which ended up being free. And he managed to school us with that race. I learned that like I need to get better turn 1 strategies apparently, because like I was out way before everybody else and I thought I was being smart. Like I stopped early so I could be first in the second round and did all these things. And yeah, and then even one of the guys who ended up beating me again, but just by a point or two, like ended the second round with like he did like one thing and he was completely done. That was like me last year. And yeah, he still ended up doing better. He was like at 16 points or something when we were all at like 60 near the end of the game and we're all laughing and like joking. And yeah, that guy still beat me. So yeah, it didn't go well. Let me tell you, it did not go as well as I had hoped. So yeah, so much for my rematch. I had even practiced for it the day before playing solo, but it's very different, right? Like solo, you're simulating a 2-player game. I mean, it's very different the more players you get on there.
Mm-hmm.
So did you really have like your own personal Rocky training montage for Gaia Project in advance of this?
I did. I played solo on our streaming channel. Yeah, so you can go check it out. My solo game, I did way better than I did in my actual game at 5 players. Yeah.
Should add whiskey.
I guess. So, note to the wise, bring whiskey. Yeah. No, so I'm looking at Board Game Geek now for pictures. Yeah, there's no 5-player games anyone is showing anywhere on there.
Oh, that's because it says 1 to 4 in the box.
It definitely says 1 to 4 in the box. And you would have to have 2 copies to play 5 players. And I don't think there is that many crazy people that have 2 copies. Although, like I said, one of the people there did have 2 copies.
You don't even have 1 copy.
I don't. I have your copy. So I got one now. All right.
So you want to move on to Sunday?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Sunday, we basically got up and left pretty early in the morning, but Mike had to go pick up Final Girl from AJ, so it was like an hour before the vendor hall opened, so we decided to play an exit game pretty quickly. Do you remember which exit it was?
Cemetery of the Night.
And it was an exit game.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to play an exit game when you don't have scissors.
Well, that was part of it.
We got about, I would say 3/4 of the way through, and then we paused for a few turns.
I'd say 2/3.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have no idea. So it was a 3-star out of 5 difficulty. I'm looking at it now. It felt harder than that. I mean, maybe we're just like, I don't know.
I think we're still tired and
yeah,
I don't think it was particularly hard. It was just the puzzles were a little obtuse. But anyway,
yeah. So
moving on. We didn't finish it yet, so
we didn't finish it. But the other thing is, I feel like the exit games have gotten a little stale for me, whereas the unlock games continue to evolve and become better. And I was thinking about this, and it might be because the exit games always have the same designers on it. So I think, you see more repetition in the puzzles than you do in something like Unlock, where I think each different scenario has like a different designer, which means you also have more potential variety as well there, right? Like, I mean, that could be
the quality. You might get like a bad set.
Yeah,
exactly.
Unlock's laid a few eggs too.
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, the
Nautilus one is terrible.
Yeah, the Abyss or whatever the heck that one was. That was awful. But beside that, like, most of them have been pretty good. And I'm not saying that the exits have gotten worse for me. And I'm sure there are good and bad ones for the exits as well. But they feel more samey to me than the unlocks do. I don't know if you all feel the same way as you've played more of them. I mean, Mike, you haven't
I mean,
played Exit in a
a
while.
challenge, like I just did a review of the Exit Advent Calendar, I guess from last year. I think the fact that the Advent Calendar is the same way as the one we just played, I think the fact that everything has to end up being a 3-digit number every time. Whereas, like, Unlock, you'll often get to, like, the yellow locks where you need a 4-digit number, but there's a ton of stuff in between that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But literally, Exit is a series of finding 3-digit numbers. And full credit to the team who designs it. They make a lot of interesting ways for you to find those 3-digit numbers. But in the end, I do think that locks them in more.
Yeah, it's the 3-digit numbers and the fact that you're always putting it in a code wheel.
Exactly.
To get the thing. It makes it seem more samey. Unlock has its own samey things with, adding the components and getting the puzzle number in it.
Yep.
But it seems to disguise it better than Exit does.
Yep. And then, so Mike went to pick up the game, and Jerry and I played a game of Habitats, which we basically finished before Mike got back. Yes, we had a couple of turns left. But, I mean, that tells you by the time Mike walked to the hall, picked up a game, and walked back, we got a full game of Habitats in, and with rules explanation. So, I mean, it's a fairly quick game. But
that helps no one determine how long it should have taken. We could have been at a hotel 20 miles away.
Well, yes, that's true. So, I don't know what. So, probably like 30 minutes, 35 minutes to play the game?
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably 35, 40 minutes.
So, what were your thoughts on Habitats? Obviously, I liked it, or I would not have bought it.
I liked it. We were playing on a table that was a bit too small, so we had to make a few adjustments there. But I thought it was fun. I'd play it again. I would not bother playing it with the little animal pieces that you'd have to root out and put on top of it. But the core gameplay was fun.
So on every tile, not on every tile, but on a lot of tile, there's like an animal. And so there's probably like 40 animals in the game, maybe 50. And so you could buy as an upgrade, as a Kickstarter upgrade, which is like the worst upgrade ever, but I ended up buying it anyway, knowing full well that this was the case. Like there is a unique animal, like meeple on each of these meeples is unique that matches one of the ones on the tile. So you are meant to look through all these, and there's like 20 birds, right? To find the exact right bird, which matches the one on your tile, just to mark it. So
there are 68 individual animals.
Yeah. It's a little ridiculous. And like, I don't know, like the color is very hard to parse out. Like, I don't know, is this going to be a pink one or a gray one? Or, I mean, you kind of figure it out a little bit after a while, but yeah, the odds of, it would certainly add time to a 30-minute game. Like if you're talking about adding an extra 10 minutes. Now, I will say in like a 3 or 4 player game, there's a little bit more downtime. I mean, not a lot, right? Like you're literally moving one space, picking up a tile, and then like the next player can start their turn. While the one player is determining where to put this tile. But it gives you something to do when it's not your turn, which is look through all these animals for ones you have on your tiles. But I thought it was a very fun little game. Both of the games I played were very close. Although I don't think it's a problem because the one game I played with my wife and I were within like 2 or 3 points, and the other player was like 30 points behind us. So I don't think it's necessarily like that everything is so well balanced that it's always going to turn out close. I just think, there is a certain level of skill threshold that you can have with this game, and the games are going to play fairly close. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it as well. And that is our PAX experience. Do we want to compare this quickly to other cons that we've been to, and PAXs from the past as well?
PAXs from the past. Say that 5 times fast.
PAXs from the past.
From the future.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. I've been every PAX except the one last year because I had a work thing. I couldn't make it. This one, to me, seemed a bit smaller than they'd been in the past. It's the way it's organized seems to change every time I go. Like which spaces of the convention center are being used and which spaces aren't being used, and how you go through security changes and how they do security change. I wish they'd kind of settle down. one thing I did notice on this one, for this one, thankfully they changed the way you register for events to go to an app-based registration system. So at 8 a.m., you'd go through the app and pick what event you wanted to get to register for, which is much nicer than it used to be, where you'd have to go to the convention center early and basically sit on the floor in a line to find out that, you know, maybe you got what you wanted, maybe you didn't, right? At least with the app, you know, in 15 seconds whether you got it or not. I noticed the number of RPGs seems to be fewer this year than it had been in the past. There was only one block of Call of Cthulhu games, for example, and on Friday. Then there was none on Saturday, which is a little weird. And I'd say overall, my probably biggest criticism of PAX is that it's a very, very short convention. The convention doesn't open until 10 a.m. On Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It closes at midnight, granted, but it's only a 3-day con, and I don't know, at least for me, Sundays are basically waste. They're the travel day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's really a 2-day con that opens at 10 a.m. Just seems entirely too short for what it should be. That said, it is certainly a much more game playing con, I think, or more conducive to game playing than something like Gen Con. Whereas Gen Con, I think, is more about the hype and the new releases and the shopping and all that stuff. Whereas PAX is a bit more about the games, or playing the game.
Over half the hall was dedicated to play space. Now, whether that was tournaments or open play, whereas something like Gen Con is definitely not that way. It's definitely mostly vendor halls with quite a bit of gaming space, to be fair. But
they have tons and tons of gaming events that you can register for. Like that whole upper hall is all Paizo games. The entire Lucas Oil Stadium is nothing but free play. Or not free play.
Tournaments.
Board game library play. No, that's not tournaments. It was board game library play.
Well, that's only the very end is the library, but yes. But yeah, there's a lot of tournaments and open gaming, but you don't see many people in the library. Whereas PAX Unplugged,
that's true.
There was a huge line just to go through the library.
The entire time.
Yeah, which I could see as annoying to some people, but there was a lot of play going on for sure. Whereas something like Gen Con, maybe there's a lot of play going on, but it's more spread out and you don't necessarily see it all at once. Except I guess that one main hall, there's a lot of play going on there at Gen Con.
Yeah, I mean, Gen Con also charges you money to play in the events. You have to buy tickets, right? Where PAX it's just the fee for the badge, and then it's all the events are free if you can get them. I know Gen Con makes you pay for them to sort of balance the supply with demand. PAX basically leaves it to survival of the fittest on who gets into what. So different pros and cons. But like I said, PAX is definitely more game playing oriented, I think, and Gen Con is much more hype, industry hype, and new releases, sales, that sort of thing.
And before we move on to Mike, just your quick thoughts on Origins too, because you've been to that one as well.
Well, I went to the sort of the gimpy Origins that was like kind of half the size of a regular Origins.
Yeah, during COVID. Yeah.
So I hesitate to compare it to what like a normal Origins, but I can say for Origins we spent most of our time not in the convention. We spent it playing games at the hotel with the Secret Cabal guys and their friends. So,
and I will say that's been my Origins experience every time I've gone, either playing in the hotel or playing at a house that I was with some people. That's where most of the game playing ended up happening. I would say the vendor hall's about the same for PAX and Origins. But Origins is at a weirder time of the year. Origins is before Gen Con, so there's not a lot of releases. Whereas PAX is right after Essen. So you tend to have more stuff that you're interested in, which is obviously also after Gen Con. So I think PAX is at a better time of the year than Origins is. I think, Origins, if they can, get some hype together and get some releases there, would probably be a more exciting con, but, or vendor hall at least. But yeah, they feel about the same to me, because we ended up spending most of our time, most of those games we talked about playing were played at the hotel. They weren't played there, even though there were a ton of open play tables. Most of the games we played were at the hotel. All right, Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been to PAX, so I can't compare to other ones.
So how about
I had fun again this year. It seemed, comparison to other years, it seemed more crowded to play games, tougher to get into the library to borrow games. The vendors seemed similar. I don't know, except for being more crowded for playing games, but also kind of seeming a little tighter and smaller. I didn't have any major differences or comparisons.
I think the thing they did better this year, and Jerry mentioned it briefly, is crowd control, and there weren't as many lines. Now, we weren't there before the hall opened on day one, so maybe there was still a big queue or whatever else. But that's the one thing I remember most from the past, is even just getting through security if you went out to get food took forever.
It was miserable.
The only thing that there was lines for that annoyed me was the paint. My son did it. My son and I did it both at Gen Con and Origins. Gen Con, they just took your name and they're like, come back in 30 minutes or whatever, which was great. At PAX, they made you stand in this line, which was really annoying because we basically wasted an hour to an hour and a half, like standing in this line to get into the paint thing. It would have been awesome if they just like, all right, what's your name? All right, come back in a half an hour, or give us your cell phone or whatever.
PAX loves their lines.
So that was a little bit.
It's part of the culture of the cons, apparently.
But
they got PAX, regular PAX too.
But it got way better for security lines. I will say.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
way better,
100%.
So I think they're figuring it out. I just hope they figure it out across the board. You said they figured it out for the RPG section. They figured it out for getting into and out of the con. So, like, they're just certain things, like the Wild Bills. Hopefully they'll figure out a way that you don't have to stand in line all day for that thing, too. Although, their employees...
That wasn't... The line for the refills wasn't bad. It was just for the purchase.
Well, Saturday was awful. It was awful. Saturday.
No, I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah. And then, again, the paint stuff was the worst. Like, we literally wasted an hour waiting in line, which shouldn't be the case. So hopefully they figure that out. But beside that, I do like it. I do recognize that it's shorter, but it is a con, just like most of them you can extend. If we'd gotten it on Thursday, again, most of our game playing was in hotels. We could have played games Thursday night. It would have made it feel longer than, basically just trying to cram everything into Friday and Saturday. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is definitely going to be the longest episode of the podcast if I don't break it up into two. So we'll see how we do it there. I don't want to edit this, so I might not. So we'll see how that goes as well. It might just.
I think 2 episodes make sense.
And it may just go up as is also. So there's that.
One story could just be the PAX coverage, and the second podcast can be your story of the Gaia Project game.
I mean,
which took almost as long as the game, I think.
My humiliating defeat in Gaia Project. All right, Isaac, I'm coming for you next year, baby. That's all you need to know. Coming for you next year. I'm gonna do. I need a Mike/Rocky training montage for an entire year of training. Like, I'm gonna be that underdog Mighty Ducks team that comes back and it'll be more epic when I do eventually win in 2090.
I think it's gotta end on a Emilio Estevez reference there.
Yes, the Mighty Ducks.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us as always. Always a pleasure. Please leave comments about your PAX experience. Come join us in the Discord for more discussion about it, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Yep.
Yes, Peter.
I didn't really hang out with my family on Saturday. I was just hungover all day and sleeping in the room.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is
we buy it.
That's half true.